They are making international headlines. They are on France 24 with us today. Kyriakos Mitsotakis, hello.
Hello.
You are the new Prime Minister of the Hellenic Republic in Greece. You are now making your first trip abroad, with the exception of Cyprus, as the head of the government. But first of all, the Adrian Daria, the Iranian oil tanker held in Gibraltar for 1 month by the British authorities, is now heading towards Kalamata, the Greek harbor. Are you ready to harbor the oil tanker and let it go through the Greek territorial waters?
Well, the ship in question isn't heading towards a Greek port, and no Greek port has yet received an official docking request.
This is what the itinerary indicates.
But that's just a hypothetical situation there. What we do know is that the ship is not heading to a Greek port.
This is no longer the case, and this is what the maritime traffic indicated. You did not get any info from the Iranian authorities, and no pressure from the United States.
Well, we know what the United States' position is on this. It's a well-known position. It's a very broad position for a very broad situation. But what I'm saying here today is that we have not yet received an official request for the ship to dock in a Greek port.
Greece is the first commercial fleet in the world. Do you have any concerns about your own ships sailing the Straits of Hormuz?
No. It's a very complex situation, and we will continue to pay close attention to it as it evolves. But I can't make any further comment on that.
Let's now talk about the motives of your visit in France. This is your first bilateral visit after Cyprus on the 29th of July. Why France?
Well, as you know, France and Greece are two countries that are very close. France has always supported us during hard times, as you know, through the economic crisis. And as you also know, I'm sure you're aware of it, in 2 years we'll be marking the 200-year anniversary of the Greek Revolution. So I would say that history shows that our two countries are very close. So it's a perfect opportunity for me to touch on that when I will be meeting with President Macron. I will speak about our economic plan, the bilateral relations, and also major issues for the European Union. Also, next week I'll be heading to Berlin. But that being said, I think that me being here in France is a very important time for me. I actually met President Macron some years ago at a time when he was minister and I was head of the opposition. And I think that we get along really quite well.
You're roughly of the same generation, so to say.
Well, yes, I guess you could say that. But that being said, we are from very different political backgrounds. That being said, in terms of the EU, I agree with a lot of President Macron's positions. And I agree with him wholeheartedly on a number of those points. So yes, guess you could say we are from the same generation, but there's also another issue, populism and how we tackle it. In Greece, we were able to fight back leftist populism, and we have garnered strong support in the recent elections, the 40%. It's actually the first time in 10 years that the government will have absolute majority in Greece. So we were able to fight back extremism and populism, and we were able to really push them back.
Golden Dawn is no longer in the government.
No. We were actually able to tackle populism without copying a lot of the populist rhetoric. We actually brought forward a very strong platform for the Greek economy.
However, two ministers pertaining to the radical and nationalist People's Orthodox Alarm Party are now members of your government. Cannot that be compared to other Fidesz and the League hardliners in Europe?
Well, actually, some of these people have been within New Democracy for a number of years. And New Democracy is a centre-right party. It is also a party that has changed a lot over the past few years. Now, it represents what I call the centre of Greek politics, because it is in fact impossible to win any elections without having moved the party more towards the centre of politics.
What are you expecting from France? What can Paris do for the acquisition of Margarita Skinas to a prestigious role? We're talking about the Minister of the Environment and Renewable Energies.
Well, we're going to see how it plays out. I have great faith in Mr. Skinas because he knows the Commission very well, and also with van der Linden.
Head of the Commission, if a green light is given for the key positions of that Commission.
Of course, we support her, and I and the party support her. I also have great faith that Mr. Skinas will help van der Leyen in her work. He's also there to defend the causes of Greece. But really, obviously, van der Leyen will have the final call on many major decisions.
Talking about the environment, how do you feel about the EU's role in the rescue mechanism to battle fire outbreaks that devastated the UV island in Greece?
Well, this is a very important topic because when we talk about Europe, Europe that protects, obviously you have to protect the environment as well as the citizens, people who live within Europe. In Greece, yet again, we have been struck by some devastating forest fires, and we called on the European Union rescue mechanism, which was activated, and they sent us 3 water bombers. And what I feel is important, I'll be talking about this with President Macron, is that this mechanism needs to become a permanent mechanism with more water bombers available for those European countries who will face forest fires.
Those forest fires, because of the island, is not the only case. Do they stem from global warming?
Yes, but it's not just an issue for Greece. It's an issue for all of the European South, as it is for France. In fact, I think it perfectly logical that we need to increase EU capacities to help tackle these sorts of issues. And the EU Commissioner who put in place this mechanism did some fantastic work. But that's in the past, and now it's up to the new Commission. And the new Commission needs to make this a permanent structure.
You said that you were going to be heading towards Berlin and meet with Angela Merkel and then meet Mark Rutte in the Netherlands. Are you expecting something from the European partners to renounce this target of GDP surplus, excluding the debt servicing outlay? We're talking about a target of 3.5%.
Well, this is something we've spoken about in the past already.
How do you believe you're going to be convincing them?
Well, I think we need to work on making Greece a credible nation. We need to bring in real reform. Reform that Greece so desperately needs. For me, our number one priority is growth. We can improve growth by reducing tax, corporate tax, for example, which is what we'll do in 2020 by reducing corporate tax from 28 to 24%. We will open up to investment. We've already done a great deal in that vein over the past 2 months. We'll also cut back red tape. Red tape is always a problem for Greek business.
Inequalities are still very strong in Greece. How are you going to be battling this? Because property taxes are going to go down and wealthy people are going to take advantage of this.
Well, I think it's more an issue of inequality, and inequality comes from unemployment, because where you have the poorest people, they're the people who don't have jobs. For me, the best form of policy to improve equality is a policy that creates jobs. We have 400,000 Greek citizens who actually left Greece during the crisis. So how can we get them to come back if we don't have growth?
And the concentration of wealth is going to be going up for the benefit of the greatest wealth holders in Greece.
Well, we know that there is a lot of wealth in Greece. So we need to convince those people who have capital in Greece to reinvest in the country. We can't just ask foreign investors to play their part. We also need to remind the Greek wealthy people that it is up to them to also play their part. We're currently in a time that I would call the post-populism era. We have had a 4-year government that has been stable, and the crisis is behind us. And that gives me hope for the future.
Greece has been harboring a great number of migrants and refugees in the last 5 years. Your Deputy Minister responsible for citizen protection, George Mitsotakis, was concerned about the 17% increase of migrants in the Aegean waters.
No, I think 2015 is behind us now. And it is up to Greece to deal with the borders, but it's also up to the EU to deal with borders and protect borders. Obviously, we have an EU-Turkish deal that is in place. And I am really pushing for the EU asylum policy to be changed.
Tighten asylum conditions?
Well, obviously, this is going to take time. But I think first, we need to change Greek law in terms of asylum. Those people who don't have asylum, they need to head back through Turkey. Unfortunately, that's not happening now, and that's why we have so many problems with the Greek islands.
When you witness the border closing policy carried out by Matteo Salvini in Italy, is that a showdown with other EU members?
Obviously, you can't have a Schengen zone without border security, but we shouldn't take it too far. Back in 2015, Greece took in more than 1 million migrants, people who passed through Greece and headed to Central Europe. And that is why I say here now that we need to have an EU border security team. It's such an important issue that we need to push forward. It's a major issue for the EU and for the Commission.
And sharing migrants among EU members as well.
Well, yes, we also can't forget burden sharing. It's not just an issue for Italy and Greece to deal with. Granted, they're two countries on the external European borders. But if we're talking about solidarity in Europe, unfortunately, 2015 is not a great example.
You eliminated the migration ministry, which was absorbed by the citizen protection ministry. Now, to you, the migration policy is under the police's responsibility.
No, it's not just an issue for the police. But that being said, we need to ensure that the processing facilities on the Greek islands are operated effectively. There is an issue of security. But again, Greece is a country that throughout its past has taken in a lot of migrants, and we have found successful ways of integrating them. We have been able to integrate them into Greek society. So it's not just an issue of policing and security.
Thank you, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, Prime Minister of Greece. You are meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron. Thank you for being with us today on Trans 24.
Fake news.